All right, Charlie, I have 10:03. Do we want to get started or do we want to give another minute for people to join?
We can go ahead and start.
Let's do that.
Train schedules exist for a reason.
There you go. The floor is yours, Charlie.
Well, welcome one and all. It is starting to look more promising out there for a healthy world to live in, and KGC is going to try to get back into the swing. We didn't have awards last year, but the intent is this year. And we all have a lot to say in the communications we've done, and we're anxious to see what those entries are from the communications work from the biggest dud of a year ever, 2020. So this could be interesting. So David, you're going to put out David is the awards chair, and we will soon see in the email calls for entries. And so what's the basic timeline on that? When can we look forward to it? And how long will folks have to get an entry in?
So I'm hoping we are in the process of finalizing our judges now. We want to make sure we get all our judges in line. We have increased the number of categories. We've added 3 this year, so we're going to have 23 total categories. And I'm hoping that we can get the call for entries out by the end of next week, if not early the 4th week of March. So later this month. The timeline for entry looks to be, I believe the early bird entry is going to be the middle of May, and the final deadline will be the first week of June for submitting entries. And then we are going to tentatively plan the award ceremony in September. And then we're going to wait a fair amount of time yet before we determine whether that's going to be in person or virtual. But all of that will be in the call of entries. We'll have it up on our website. I'll send out a MailChimp to anybody that has subscribed, and anybody that has questions can contact me. Sound good?
Sounds good. Looking forward to hearing Jill speak today.
Excellent. One other note, we still are doing a scholarship. The CAG offers a $500 scholarship to incoming freshmen for anybody that studies journalism or communication. That deadline is Friday. It's been up on our website. We've sent out a couple of emails about it, did a little bit of advertising, but it's a fairly short application process. So if you know somebody that wants to apply, there's still plenty of time. You could probably do it in a couple of hours if you are prepared. So with that said, today we are happy to welcome Jill Seyfred. She's the Executive Director for Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky. Jill has been the Executive Director at Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky since 1988. In her role, she has helped cement the observance of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in our state. She has worked closely with communicators across state government for decades. She holds an MSW from the University of Kentucky. She also got her undergraduate degree from Hope College. We'll have to discuss this later, Jill. I lived in Grand Rapids, not far from there, for a couple of years, and I grew up in Michigan my entire life until I moved down here to go to Kentucky myself. So everybody, welcome Jill. Jill, the floor is yours. I've made you co-host. You may share your screen whenever you are ready. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see everybody this morning, and I'd also like to introduce Brian McFarland. I'm sure most, if not all of you, know Brian. He is an expert communicator, and we are very fortunate that he is a member of the Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky Board of Directors. So we will be tag teaming it a little bit this morning. So thank you, Brian. And Charlie, I want to piggyback on something you said about the awards. And I have a note here, remember the award. And also Dave earlier said that, you know, sometimes at the end of meeting, people drift off a little bit and have to sign on to other meetings. So before I even launch into anything about Child Abuse Prevention Month, I want to share with you that each year Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky gives out partner awards. We have over 238 partners in our state. And this year, 2 of the awards will be given to state government employees. So part of what I'll talk about at the end, so I kind of want to introduce it now and I'll loop back with it, but I would greatly appreciate your all's help in helping us get the word out about those awards. So one is we've contacted Secretary Weathers in the Personnel Cabinet because one of the awards is going to the Commonwealth of Kentucky state employees, just because of everything that you all have gone through with making sure that our citizens, especially our families and children, are safe during COVID. You know, hats off to everybody. And then the other award is, one of the other awards is going to public health, specifically again because of COVID and being on the front line and everything that you've all done. So I did not want to forget to share that because it's not necessarily part of Child Abuse Prevention Month, but we have been, we sent a letter to Secretary Weathers and to Dr. Stack, and then the next step is I'll follow up with a email to them, and ultimately at some point before December, we want to be able to present those awards to somebody to just say thank you. And so anything that you all can do as government communicators to help us get the word out about those awards, and our deep appreciation to state employees and public health employees would be appreciated. So kind of hang on to that thought unless anybody has any initial reactions about that. I'll loop back to that at the end and I'll launch into Child Abuse Prevention Month, if that's okay.
Hey, Jill, we could help with that. We can post that on our website,
Awesome.
kind of in conjunction with your presentation and where I post the recording. We can talk about that afterwards. And you are sharing the presenter view at the moment of your presentation. We see the current slide plus the upcoming slides.
Okay.
Just FYI there.
Okay. And just a second. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so Child Abuse Prevention Month is April, and as Dave said, I've been around a long time and have been fortunate to help Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky lead some statewide efforts around the issue of Child Abuse Prevention Month, specifically in April. It is a time where we want to bring awareness and heighten the awareness of child abuse, and specifically child abuse prevention and what is going on in our state. But first, just a little bit about Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky. You can see our mission there is to prevent the abuse and neglect of Kentucky's children through advocacy, awareness, education, and training. I'm not going to get into a lot today about specifically what we do because I really want to allow enough time to get through everything about Child Abuse Prevention Month and hopefully how each of you can be involved. But if any of you have an interest in anything else that we might do, we are available to do trainings for your individual groups. Prior to COVID, we did a lot of like brown bag lunches. We're certainly, we pivoted just like everybody else, and actually our training requests have increased through COVID. So we are available for you if you have that need. I like to start every presentation, no matter what it is, with an overview of where we are with child abuse and neglect in our state. And I know that these numbers may be a little small. You'll be able to see them in the presentation that I sent to Dave afterwards. But I draw your attention to the, what is it? The fourth column over, the number of unique children involved in child abuse reports throughout the state. This is effective with the end of calendar year 2020. So we had over 64,000 children who were reported in our state as being in harm's way. And if you think about what that means, if this presentation and our time together this morning lasts for an hour, that's 7.3 children who have been reported just in the time that we've been together. So I share that statistic not to be all gloom and doom, because we also know that research tells us that if we only focus on these huge numbers, that we get paralyzed, which is why Child Abuse Prevention Month is so important, because we want to boil it down to what can each of us do. What can you do on your street? What can you do wherever you may worship? What can you do as a government communicator? But I do think it's important to put everything in context. And so we are talking about a huge number of children in our state who are being impacted every day. Okay, so how can you join us this April? So for those of you who are, hanging around the Capitol the past few Aprils, you may have seen the pinwheels on what is referred to as the English Garden. Very formal name. I like to call it the grass in front of the Capitol. So typically we have planted pinwheels in that lawn area that leads up to the Capitol. I'm pleased to say that we will be able to do so again this year. I wasn't sure, just because of COVID and because of security, if we would be allowed to do that, but Historic Properties has granted us permission. So we will not be publicly planting the pinwheels, but the governor, the first lady, and the lieutenant governor will be joining PCAKY staff and board as we plant those pinwheels. So typically there's a little over 3,000 pinwheels, so it presents a very striking contrast when the wind is blowing and you see the pinwheels twirling. And what those pinwheels represent is the hope of childhood. No matter where we are in our adult lives, we hope that everybody knows and understands what it's like to be a child, even if our own childhoods may have been fraught with some challenges. We want everybody to look at those pinwheels and to think of hope and promise, and to know that childhood really does last a lifetime. So it's a very visual way that we can kind of grab people's attention and then hopefully get them to say, okay, what can I do to help? For those of you, I can't remember, I think it was Lisa who said that she's with the Ag Department now. So we're also pleased that all of the constitutional officers have agreed to participate with us this year. Again, how do we do that in a socially distanced environment? So what we did was we reached out to each of the constitutional officers and asked them if they would be willing to tape a video for us real quick, 30, 45 seconds, and to answer or address one of these three questions: either a favorite childhood memory, an adult who was important to you as a child, or if you, meaning the constitutional officer, if you are a parent, do you have a particular memory of your child or children? So I'm thrilled that each one of the constitutional officers has agreed to do that. So that piggybacks on our tagline of childhood lasts a lifetime. So what we will do throughout the month of April is to air those videos across our social media platforms. And again, we hope to convey to people that yes, this is a problem, but we want to boil it down to prevention is important. And here's why it's important. Because each one of us can make a difference. And each one of us can share those memories, or can be that memory, or can have that positive influence. Okay, let me just stop here and ask Brian if he has anything to add, or if there's been any questions so far.
You know, the only thing I said, the page you showed that showed the county breakdown.
Yes.
I live in Taylor County. And it's very easy to, in a small community, to be insulated and think that that kind of thing doesn't happen here. But I was personally shocked by the number of kids that were reported just here in Taylor County. And I'm sure it's just the tip of the iceberg, because a lot of folks are under the radar. But Jill and her staff do remarkable work. I've been on several boards over the years, and this is one that's really does great work, and they're great folks.
Thank you. And Brian, just so you know, the revised number for Taylor County is 462 kids.
Yeah, that's way too many for a county of about 30,000 people.
I have a question.
And oh, sorry.
Have you noticed in the past year, with COVID, with lockdown, with kids having to learn from home versus at school, parents working from home versus at school, and cooped up together, there's a lot of stress in the home, that child abuse may have risen? I know that if someone in the household is an abuser, that they're going to abuse more than just kids. And if you're having to live in the same four walls with this person 24 hours a day, it could be hairy out there. What have you seen number-wise in the COVID era? Has it gone up?
Great question, Charlie. Let me first of all clarify that Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky is not the agency that actually goes out and investigates child abuse. So that's the Department for Community-Based Services, Commissioner Straub here, that you can see. But we work real closely with DCBS. So I will say that yes, that is a very valid concern. The schools, when you talk about where those, the chart with the numbers on it, like where are those referrals? They're referred to as referrals. Others may say like reports. Where are those referrals coming from? The number one referral source is schools. So if the schools are not in session, then absolutely those numbers plummeted. Does that mean that the actual incidence of child abuse and neglect decline? We know that that is not the case, but the number of reports did decline. So that's one reason why a lot of folks were very concerned when schools were not in session, and we don't need to get into the debate about that, but I will say the more eyes that are on children, the more likely it is that if a child is in harm's way, that a trusted adult is going to be able to see that. We have also seen with kids that are learning from home that just in terms of eyes on them, a lot of kids did not even want to, even if their schools provided them with a Chromebook or whatever, a lot of kids did not want to log on because of their living conditions. And they felt that they would be shamed or bullied when other people saw the environment in which they live. So they opted to not sign on at all, which again means less eyes on those kids. So not only health-wise, but mental health-wise, the pandemic has been very detrimental to our children and families. So absolutely, Charlie. Okay, I'm sorry that Anya Weber is not able to be with us this morning. I checked with her. She has a standing appointment at this time, but DCBS, through the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, has been a longtime partner of ours. And I've worked with Anya, oh gosh, Brian, like decades. Not only for Child Abuse Prevention Month, but for other things. So each year, no matter who the commissioner is, and that's the other thing, you know, this issue spans across administrations, both federally and at the state level. April has been declared by proclamation, both presidential and gubernatorial, every year since 1983. Doesn't matter who's in charge, that this is something that they have wanted to be involved in. So this year, one of the ways that DCBS is going to be involved is that the commissioner is going to have a fireside chat with us. It's open to anybody. I recognize that not everybody on this meeting and not everybody you know, within the communication group may be interested in that, but I did want to just kind of show it as an example of one way that we are working with one particular cabinet. So another way, again, that whether it's your own individual family or whether this is something that you would like to promote to employees within your departments or divisions, and again, recognizing COVID and how can we get people involved, we came up with an idea of having a community scavenger hunt. So if you look down there at the bottom, there's actually prize money. We're going to give out a $200 Visa gift card and then $175. And the whole idea is that we want families. Doesn't have to be families who are served by DCBS. It does not have to be families or children who are in foster care. We want everybody. We've all been cooped up. Get your family out, get your family moving. We have come up with 34 different, what we refer to as clues, that can be in any community. So find your fire department, find your police department, find your library, find your school, doesn't matter what school, any school, the closest school. If you go to our website, which I'll share at the end, you know, all of this can be found on the website, but then we want people, hopefully that will get people thinking, oh, I didn't know that this was a resource in my community. And if you're doing it with your own family and perhaps you don't have a need for that particular resource, hopefully it may be information for your child so that as your child grows into a teen or an adult, you know, they can be mindful of resources. We just want folks to be able to bond and to get outside, and there's prizes. And so we are asking folks to take photos and to send us those photos. The more clues you find, the more photos you submit, the more times you'll be entered and the greater chance you have of winning. So that is statewide, doesn't matter where folks are located. We also have something that we are referring to as Home Kit Planting Day. So we have home kits, which you can see include pinwheels and a number of other items. We have sold a number, I guess I'm sorry, I don't know the exact number, but even if you don't live in an environment that has a yard, what we're saying is buy a home kit, put your pinwheels in a pot of dirt and put it on your balcony or put it on your porch. It comes with a yard sign. Put the yard sign in your window. You don't necessarily have to have a yard. So again, what are ways that we as individuals and we as communities, we as government communicators can help get the word out about this awareness opportunity to help begin the conversation and the discussion about the role that each of us plays. Wear Blue Day is April 1st. That's another easy way, especially for you all as communicators. We've got these stickers, not sure if you can see it there. It says, I'm wearing blue for child abuse prevention. They are free. So we want to be able to distribute these stickers so that folks wear blue on April 1st, any shade of blue, wear your sticker, hold up a sign that can be downloaded, take photos either individually or social distance within a group. And again, it's a way, some companies and some organizations even have contests internally in terms of like which department can get the most people to wear blue. Some companies have a dress down day, and or now that we are working from home, some companies are having a dress up day for you know, wear your blue and pay $1 to do that. So again, if any of you want these stickers, just let me know or let Brian know. I'll share my email at the end and we can ship those to you. I mentioned trainings before. We've got a number of trainings. We've got credentialed folks on staff who can provide, oh gosh, we've got, I think, over 25 different topics that we train on, ranging from how to recognize and report child abuse, to internet safety, to policies and practices that youth serving organizations need to implement in order to make sure that the children they serve are safe while in their care. So again, we're happy to do that. Specifically in April, WellCare has provided some funding for a series of trainings. Now, Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky will only be doing the last one having to do with youth serving organizations. But we have reached out to a number of our subject matter experts, again, going back to what are we seeing as a result of COVID and how have families changed, how have needs changed. We are seeing an increase in issues associated with children and youth in their mental health, which then obviously for some leads to suicidal tendencies. Before the call started, Charlie and I were talking about substance abuse that has increased during COVID. So we have a series of trainings. They are free. So again, whether you as an individual have an interest in this, or if it's something that you want to promote to your employees because of situations within their own families, the more the merrier. There is no cost, and you do not have to be connected with a certain department or a certain region in order to participate. We have a number of other resources that are available. Again, most of these are free because our staff do a great job in writing grants that cover the cost of that. I will say that the images that are depicted here are some of our most requested items, especially the Internet Safety Toolkit. For kids of all ages and for parents of any age. Sometimes, you know, kids know more than we do when it comes to safety, or I shouldn't say safety, when it comes to the internet and things that can be found on their internet. So what do we as parents need to know in order to keep our kids safe? We just came out with a home safety checklist. It covers all sorts of things, ranging from how to keep prescriptions safe, firearm safety, water safety. So again, all of these items, whether it's for you as an individual or folks that you work with or people that you know may be in need, we're happy to provide those resources. Okay, and the pinwheels. Mentioned that we will be planting them in front of the Capitol. In the past, we typically distribute anywhere between 50 and 75,000 pinwheels in our state. We are the second largest state, and I will pause here and ask, of all the states, who do you think is the #1 state that has ordered pinwheels the past few years?
Kentucky.
No, Kentucky's second. Who do you think is first?
Pennsylvania.
No, Utah. I mean, I thought it would be California or New York or Texas, you know, Florida, you know, a big state. No, it's Utah. So the idea behind the pinwheels, as I mentioned earlier, is not just, oh, aren't those pinwheels pretty as they're blowing in the wind, but we want people to see the pinwheels, know that they are the national symbol for child abuse prevention, and know that it is a entree. It is a mechanism whereby we can begin a conversation. You know, did you see those pinwheels? What do they mean? Did you know that there's a statewide child abuse prevention organization in Kentucky? Here's their website. Do you need help? Do you have this number? So it's not just, oh, here's this pinwheel. We want it to lead to some kind of action. We do ask, as communicators, we ask that the pinwheels not be associated with the number of substantiated child abuse reports. And that is because of what I mentioned earlier, that research has shown us that, you know, those numbers, absolutely, those numbers tug on your heartstrings. And you're like, oh my gosh, how could there be 65,000 children in our state? But then we're paralyzed. How do you help 65,000 children? Well, the way that you help 65,000 children is by helping a child on your block, or by helping your niece or your nephew or your grandchild, or you know, the neighbor who lives next to you, you know, one child at a time. And if we think of those substantiations, we also know that while we may get immediate attention, we do not get sustained long-term involvement. So we ask for anybody who is doing a story on pinwheels that we turn it into something positive. How many foster parents we've had, how many children may need a foster parent, how many live births have we had in Kentucky, how many particular children or families did a program serve. So there's lots of different ways that we can turn that into a positive. I'm not sure if you can see my pinwheel lapel pin that I'm wearing, but we've got lots of different merchandise, most of which is available for free. Pinwheels, I mentioned the Wear Blue Days stickers, we've got magnets, again, all with positive messages in an effort to get folks involved. I'm not using it today, but we do have a number of different Zoom backgrounds. We are hoping to launch our new website in March that will be much more user-friendly than the one we have now. So stay tuned for that. I don't think there's anybody on here from the Attorney General's office, but we have been fortunate. So the Child Victims Trust Fund operates out of the Attorney General's office. We've been fortunate the last few years to get funding from the trust fund to fund various things. And this year, we are pleased that we will be launching this campaign on April 5th. You can see the graphic there. Are they good for your kids? Side note for those of you who may have already known this, did you know that you cannot have a QR code on a bus ad? We had this all set up. We loved it. It's like QR code. Oh, great. People will be able to scan it. We sent it to the, so the funding will allow for bus ads in Northern Kentucky, Louisville, and Lexington. We sent it to those various companies and they're like, we can't accept it. It's a liability for them because what happens is, you know, people will have their cameras while they're driving, will come up to the back of the bus, and there's an accident. So our great idea had to be altered a little bit, but we will be launching this campaign. The Attorney General's office and Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky will be having a press conference on April 5th to announce it. So we've got the bus ads. We're going to have a landing page on our website specifically devoted to this campaign. We'll also be launching digital ads. And then we also have postcards that we'll be sending to many of our partners. And we are also offering a training on April 22nd. We know that one of the keys to preventing child sexual abuse is understanding healthy child development. That means using the correct names of body parts, being able to talk to your children so that they understand and can and help, so that they can help you help them protect themselves. So that training will be going on the 22nd. We also have mini grants that are available as a result of funding from Aetna. So these mini grants are available to communities. Also, state government, if you want to apply. The mini grants come with, it's not money, it's merchandise. So if you are awarded a mini grant, you get a supply of pinwheels. I think it's 480 pinwheels, lapel pins, other things to help you draw awareness to child abuse and neglect. So I'm happy to provide that application, Dave, too, if you think that anybody will be interested. I think it's on our website. I'm not positive, but we're very supportive of Aetna for being able to do that. Okay, and then media engagement. You can see here it's an image of our 2020 packet. We don't quite have our 2021 packet done yet, but we do have a media toolkit, so to speak, that's specifically for media. We've got a really good relationship with the Kentucky Press Association. So we send the toolkit to them and then they send it out to all their newspapers. In the past, we've also been fortunate enough to be able to send it to the Kentucky Broadcasters Association with Brian's help. And again, I'm happy to be able to provide that to each of you if that is something that would be of interest. Something else that we've done this year, we've got a joint letter to the editor. We actually just sent it out to our partners yesterday. I mentioned we've got 238 partners. We're not expecting all 238 to sign on to the letter. We know that some have an approval process that takes a while, and some of our partners are companies and organizations that just don't sign on to letters like that, but it hasn't even been out 24 hours yet, and we've already had 38 partners sign on to it. So our thought is we want a show of support. We want to be able to say, here's all of these partners who are unified in our stand against child abuse and for child abuse prevention. And then we will obviously post that across social media and our website and distribute that to the media also. We
Hey,
also
Jill,
yes.
how are you recording those, the partners joining on? Are you, I mean, is that digitally that they do that, or are you just getting email confirmation that they're going to do that? How?
No, it was through a Google Doc form, so it's something that they actually have to complete, and then there's also a place there where they can add their logo. It asks, like, are you authorized to sign on to this on behalf of your agency? So then that form is actually submitted to us. We've had a couple of folks that have said, like, just due to security and firewall issues on their computer, that they weren't able to get the form, but I've sent that then to them via PDF so that then they can just download it, handwrite, fill it out, scan it back.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. We've also got this community outreach guide. It's multiple pages, but what I did is I included the table of contents here. So we've got sample activities, we've got sample tweets and Facebook posts, the information for the Zoom backgrounds and how to download that. For kids who want to make their own pinwheel, we've got a do-it-yourself pinwheel. The scavenger hunt is in there, Wear Blue Day. So again, that is available. Okay, and that is my contact information. And I guess before we open it up for questions, Brian, did I forget anything, or is there anything that you think we should elaborate on?
No, Jill, I think that's got most of it. Just appreciate everybody's time and hope they can help us.
Are we opening it up for questions now? Anybody on the floor have any questions?
I have a question. Jill, is there a standard definition of what child abuse is? What constitutes child abuse?
Yes, it's in statute. I won't recite it here, but it is in statute, yes. Now, I will say that when you put on your communicator hat and you read media reports about Kentucky being #1 in child abuse reports, that's a little bit misleading because there's no uniform across state definition of child abuse and neglect. So what constitutes abuse and neglect in Kentucky does not necessarily mean that that will be the same in Oregon. And the reporting is also different from state to state. Kentucky has one of the most stringent reporting laws. So it stands to reason that we're going to get more reports because our law is much more strict in that regard.
Once upon a time, somebody had something wonderful they wanted to sell, and Johnny Carson, the Tonight Show, said, I'd love to talk about that on my show. That's wonderful. That's the greatest thing. Trouble is, I don't have much time. Only have 5 seconds. What do you want me to say? Now, if that question was asked to you, you nailed it with because childhood lasts a lifetime. That hits it because it's all about kids. And if you're raised well, what you learn then, the good parts, you'll carry into your adult life. It will touch everything. So meanwhile, everything else is touching everything else. It seems that there are people who did not get that message in their youth. And so meanwhile, they are out there crossing lines. They may not realize they're crossing a line. If you want to live under my roof, you'll play by my rules. You won't bite the hand that feeds you. As long as I'm putting food on the table, you'll mind me. Or you'll do this if your team wants more wins, or if you want a better society. You want a less lawless society. If you want A, you'll get B. So don't bite the hand that feeds you. I do this because I love you. And they are hiding behind that little phrase. It boils down to me that you want to treat others as you want to be treated. A question in all this rambling is that, does it start with kids? Honestly? Or is kids just a part of the overall crossing the line out there by so many things that we see? That's a police crossing the line, employers crossing the line and abusing employees, a teenager abusing their girlfriend when they're out on a date. Everywhere you look, somebody's crossing the line, they have the power, and they just seem to enjoy it. Where does that start? Is it with kids?
Are you asking me?
I think so, because
okay.
because if kids last a lifetime, then apparently kids can change it. And this abuse everywhere that we see, they can have an influence.
I will say I'm obviously very biased, so my answer to that question is yes. I mean, everything starts with kids. Kids will be our next leaders. So what a child learns now, how a child is treated, how adults treat them, when they grow up and they're teachers and they're politicians and they're the ones making decisions. I mean, we don't need to look any farther than our own lives to know that we remember things from our childhood, positively or negatively. You know, how many of us, I venture probably each of us at one point or another have said to ourselves something that happened, you know, something that our parents did to us. I'm never going to do that. But ultimately, we probably do. Now, it could be something as simple as, I don't know, you know, I'm never going to drive a car like my mom. Well, then before we know it, we're driving a car exactly like our moms do. So yeah, I mean, I think everything can be traced back to kids.
Is your message, take a look at yourself, or stop and give yourself pause before you say something, take action? Because somewhere this is a vicious cycle, and say it starts with kids, but might start with me, might start with Brian, might start with the police officer, might start anywhere. That we all have to kind of stop and remember to treat others as we want to be treated.
Yes, I mean, I think that's one way you can put it. I think, and Brian, feel free to chime in, but I think our message is the power of one. You know, each of us has the opportunity to impact the life of a child. And conversely, the life of that child's parent or parents. So what are we going to do with that power? Because it is power. You know, you can turn your backs on your neighbor's kids, or you can pretend that, I don't know, something that you see in the grocery store isn't happening, or something on your street or whatever. But we know from talking to children who have been put in harm's way that what makes a difference is one adult. doesn't have to be, I mean, sure, it would be great if it was a whole community. It'd be even greater if it was a whole state, a whole nation. But one, the power of one. So what, you know, so again, I say, what are we going to do with our power?
And I will agree with that as a social worker that used to remove children. That is absolutely true. You know, when you're in that scenario, you realize how much, you know, just drugs 2 generations ago has affected mental health 2 generations now, or has caused abuse today because of something from the 70s, you know. So I do think that every human being, you always should take a second think about, you know, what have they got going on? What raised them to be at this point? You know, a lot of times with sex abuse, those individuals were sexually abused as children, you know, and you find that out during the course of investigations. But one of my I have 2 questions. One was, do you have an email that would be already kind of mocked up that we could send to our staff, kind of making them aware of this? And 2, as far as also where they could get the resources quickly, because I do know that as public defenders, I believe we have at least 3 or 4 foster parents in our agency, if not more. That's something that people do as public defenders. That's something they're interested in. And then my second question is I know the report number has went down, but has the substantiation percentage, do you know if that has stayed the same or if more cases have been substantiated with the lower numbers?
Thanks, Kara. All great questions. And before the call started, Charlie and I were talking about some of the factors that go into those volatile family situations. And one thing I didn't share in my presentation was that there's 3 factors, as you know, Kara: substance abuse, mental health issues, and family violence. If you certainly, that doesn't mean that anybody with mental health issues is going to harm their children, but those 3 factors are prevalent. One or more of those 3 factors are prevalent in the vast majority of situations where children are placed at harm's risk. So there's certainly an opportunity to intervene and to provide services. So we do not have an email mocked up, but that is a great idea. We will do that. And I guess, Dave, I can send that to you for distribution, right? Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't know about the substantiation. I have a guess, but it would only be a guess, and I will probably shouldn't say anything publicly. I mean, we do know that the reports went down, but I don't know about the substantiations.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I've got a couple of things for, you know, kind of, I'm no expert in this, but one of the people that I work with and work for is huge into adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, and
Yes.
the number of those that happen at childhood that affect almost every aspect of an adult's life is just staggering. It's always blows me away in not good ways. So if you are unfamiliar with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, look that up, and there's some scary numbers there.
Dave, I just shared some training, free training.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
On ACEs with free
Excellent.
continuing education credits.
Let me mute Natasha there. And then the second thing that I wanted to say was I've been in communication for a long time with state government. I'm in the prevention side of it currently, heart disease. I've done hazardous materials, earthquake preparedness, a little bit of everything, and your resources that you have are fantastic. And whether this is an unintended consequence or not, I intend to grab all of those and see how I can incorporate those things into the things that I currently communicate: heart disease and stroke prevention. A lot of great ideas there. So I hope you don't mind me borrowing some of those ideas for future things in future months. But I will definitely help you share them for April.
Thank you.
So.
Okay. So just to kind of wrap it up, so Dave, I'll send everything to you, and I shared my email address. Feel free to reach out to me individually, but I'll share everything with Dave. And then Dave, if there's something that I've omitted, or you think that I need to share something else, just let me know, and I can send that your way for distribution.
Yes.
Certainly will follow up with Dave and any of you who would like the information about the award going to state employees and public health employees. There's no huge rush. We just want to make sure that prior to December of 2021 that we present those awards publicly and get as much positive publicity as we can for that.
That sounds fantastic. I will follow up with you this week. I wrote a list of things that you mentioned that we can share in one form or the other. So we'll discuss that. And yeah, that is pretty much all I have. Do you have any final words, Charlie? I have one final word about our next topic for April, but did you have anything to follow up with, Charlie? You are muted, Charlie.
Jill, I want to say thanks for you to come on today and open our eyes to some of these things. A lot of it we just sort of overlook or take for granted, and you've got a big job in your hands, and we're glad you've shared that with us. We probably will take some of what you've said today and remember that as we put out our own messages in state government. There is again, I alluded to last year was as a big dud, but I tell you what, as 2020 existed, not our favorite year, but certainly one of the more challenging for getting out messages. Probably Governor Beshear's live conferences every day is an example of how different it was. And we have a new category in our awards of excellence this year that I want to mention to you. It could apply to you or maybe your boss or someone you work with. It's called Working Without a Net. A live performance, if you will. It doesn't have to be a unhappy thing or a ruckus thing, but you're in a precarious situation. You're unscripted. It could be a live press conference. You could be on the radio. It could be a referee at a kid's ball game. Who knows? But anyway, you've got a crowd and they are asking a lot of questions you didn't anticipate. Things could have gotten out of hand. And I want to hear how the government communicator kind of solved the problem, brought some peace to the situation. Think about that. If you have some video, audio to back that up, that's a great thing to supplement your entry with. So if you know somebody or you know of a situation that, hey, somebody did a really good thing, and I'm not just saying Andy Beshear. This could be anybody anywhere that's in state government because we have all come across these. But it's a category we want to see what kind of response we get to it this year, plus everything else that we have done. So again, the awards oftentimes are a pat on the back when we don't always see it in our paychecks. And so behind me, I have a few KGC awards on a shelf, and they mean as much to me today as the year I won them. So that's my thing about that.
Hey, Charlie, do you want me to take a minute here? Do you care?
Yeah, please do, Amy. I'm glad you brought that up.
Sure. So for those on here, you may have noticed we recently started a new Facebook group off of our Facebook page. And that's a members community for our members. And it's modeled after, there's a really great Facebook group that some of you may be a part of. If not, I'd recommend you check it out. It's called the Government Social Media Community. And that's run kind of nationally. It's by an organization that does a big social media for government conference every year. And it's really good, but it does have about 4,000 members. And people post anywhere from like 20 to 30 times a day. So it can get a little overwhelming sometimes, but the information on it is excellent. So, so we're modeling off of that and created a Facebook group off of our page for our local communicators. And so that'll be a place where our members can talk amongst each other. So if you have a question about, hey, how do you format Word to make it do this thing, or whatever other sort of communication issue you may have about social media, photography, video, audio, or maybe you have some good information to share, an award opportunity or grant opportunity, maybe a job opening in your department that some of our members might be interested in. That's a really good opportunity to share it. And we've just gotten it set up and getting it rolled out slowly. But if you are a KAGC member, go to the Facebook page and find the group and then ask to be a member of it. And I think you have to answer a couple of basic questions and say you agree to play nice and follow the rules, and we'll get you hooked into that. And then hopefully we can grow that community so we can talk amongst ourselves more frequently than our great once a month meetings. Hopefully we'll be able to talk amongst ourselves in person again one day soon. But yeah, so check out the group and please start posting in it and get those conversations rolling.
That's a great thing, Amy Wallet. Thanks a million for setting that up. Anybody else have anything else for the good of the group? St. Patrick's Day is coming up. Don't forget to wear green. How about that for the good of the group?
There you
Coming
go.
up April 10th. Fill me in.
Yeah, so finally, thank you, Jill, so much for your presentation. I will be in contact with you. We will share everything with the group. A reminder, we have our next Lunch and Learn scheduled for April 10th. It will also be at 10 a.m. And Claire Tidmore and David Watner, I'm not even sure I can pronounce that, from Doe Anderson are going to speak. And those are the folks that created the overview of the Connect relaunch campaign. And they're going to give us lots of information about that and how they did it. And Charlie, didn't you say they were connected to the COVID campaign, was it?
Team Kentucky, you see the commercial with the Band-Aid? Very simply done, those commercials. Here's where to get the vaccine. Here's how. Yeah, so we want to hear more about that simple message that's going out to millions.
Excellent. So that's all we have today, folks. We're a few minutes over, but I appreciate you all being here. And we will see you next month. Look for a follow-up email on this sometime next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.